Our topic today is going to be smartwatches for everyone by myself, Tom Kreuzer. Excuse me, if you're currently connected, you can mute your audio and you can turn off your video. When we get to the end of the presentation, then you can unmute and turn on your video at the end of the presentation. You can use the chat if you want to ask a question, or at the end of the presentation, you can unmute yourself. A handout is out on the PC Club website, and I believe Jim will be adding it to the chat maybe in a few minutes there. Okay, agenda, we'll cover some quick club status items, and then we'll get to our main topic. We do have a Max Sig coming up this Friday, January 20th at 11:30. I think Mike did just currently publish the agenda. I didn't get it in here, but if you do have an iPad or an iPhone or a Mac, it's well worth attending the meetings. Lots of question and answers, things like that. We do have, I do still run a question and answer. The next one's going to be February 7th, Tuesday, February 7th, if you have a question. And if we run out of topics or questions, I usually get some current topics there. The next general presentation will be Wednesday, February 15th. It'll be on the best phone and tablet apps. So we'll cover roughly, quickly cover 300 of new and popular apps. We won't be going into a lot of detail, but I'll mention some of the new ones, some of the ones I use, cover a wide range of topics from cooking to weather, and most of them are free. These are the officers. Jim is our president, Linda is our vice president, Paul is our membership secretary, Paula is our treasurer, Chuck is our recording secretary, Mike is our Max Sig, Andrew is our communication coordinator, I'm a director at large, and then we do have our volunteers there. Members old and new, you can pay your dues to Paul, and Paul sends out a notice when your the subscription or yearly subscription is running out to the PC Club. But if you are changing your emails, retiring from 3M, anything like that, make sure and you contact us to let us know what your new email is. If you do have suggestions for topics, you can email them or talk to a board member. We're always looking for people to volunteer to present on any hardware or software that you may be using at work or at home. And we also have our monthly eBytes newsletter. You're welcome to write a short, meaning a sentence or two, or a long multi-page article for the newsletter. Out on our website, we do have access to our past meetings, so if you missed any or want to revisit, you can see the slides, handouts, and where possible, the recording. We also have a deals section. Our eBytes are out there, and this is the link. The link is also sent in all the emails that we send out. We just concluded at the end of the year our PC Club survey, and thanks to the 46 people who completed it, which is great. We have about 109 current members in the club, and so that's a very good turnout there. The results are published out on the club website. It's about a 10 or 12 page document. And also probably at the February 7th Q&A, if we have time, I'll talk about the tools that I use to do the survey. I use Google Form, Google Sheets, Word, and I'll show you if you're interested in how it's put together and what's being done there. Okay, let's get to our main topic today, which is smartwatches for everyone by Tom Kreuzer. I debated what to call this, and smartwatches have evolved to where they're really beneficial for almost everybody I know now. So that's why I included for everyone. As a kid in the 1960s, I was captivated by the Dick Tracy watch. And for those that are old like me, and for anyone older, you remember Dick Tracy could pop up his wrist there, and he had two-way wrist TV for communicating. I thought that was the neatest thing in the world. That and more is available today on the watches, so we've come a long way. Smartwatches have exploded into our world in the last 5 years. both in terms of lower prices, more features and functions, just everything. They have evolved from just counting steps to providing many smartphone and health features. So the early ones are basically fitness trackers, things like that, with a watch capability. They've come a long way. There are now watches for every age and every lifestyle. Most watches do require a smartphone to do the initial setup and to connect to when you're using it. So that's an important thing to remember, that the watch itself is reliant on some of the power and some of the connectivity that you have in your smartphone. A few of the watches either have an option or they come with built-in cell phone connectivity, so their own kind of built-in cell phone that can function without a smartphone. But there's fewer of those, and they're more costly, and actually, well, we'll talk about some of those reasons later. The watch you buy will depend on the smartphone you own, the features that you need, and your budget. So those three things are going to contribute heavily to what is the best watch for you. Apple Watches only work with the iPhone. So if you want an Apple Watch and that has all the features that you want and has the price that you want, you have to have an iPhone to use it. Fitbit, Garmin, Whittlings, Fossil, Michael Kors are compatible with both iPhone and Android phones. So these are the rare ones. There's a few that'll work with either one. Samsung Galaxies, their watches, Watch 5, which is very popular, or the Google Pixel Watch, are only compatible with Android devices. So this gets back to, depending on the smartphone that you have, that's going to limit what watch you could really use there. Okay, next let's talk about the watches themselves. The industry seems to break them up into three categories, and that's what I use. Mainstream watches, which typically sell for $300 to $400. Then you have basic watches, and you have premium watches. We'll start out with the mainstream since that's what most people are using today. The mainstream watches are the best choice for most people, especially for health and wellness features. Some of the watches are more accurate than others, and the watch features vary by model. So next we'll cover a bunch of features. Not all watches have all these features, and so if you want a particular feature, you have to do your kind of own research to figure out what features do you want, and that'll dictate kind of what watch you're going to need. Battery life. So that's an important feature in these models. Most of them need to be charged every day. There's a few of them that last multiple days, and some of them will go even up to a week or more. But most of them do require that you charge them. So if you want to use it for sleep tracking, let's say, to track how restful of a sleep you have, you're not going to be taking it off your wrist at night. So you may have to find an hour or sometime during the day when you can charge that watch and not need the functionality while it's charging there. Almost all the watches today have some form of exercise tracking. That could be walking, biking, swimming, running, all these things. Water resistant. Almost all of them are water resistant. You can take them swimming. You can take them in the shower. You can even take them swimming in the ocean or a lake or that. And the ones that are real premium and that get into the deep diving. So you can actually do scuba diving down to, I think it's 100 meters. GPS tracking. Most of them support GPS tracking in some form. That GPS tracking may be coming from the watch itself, or it may be using your phone, which it's connected to. And with that GPS, it can tell the distance, location. You can have compass apps to show you directions, where to go, maps, things like that. Sleep tracking. Sleep tracking, it's usually sleep duration and sleep stages. It'll tell you whether you're in a light or a deep sleep kind of thing based on heart rate, based on a number of features and factions there. Most of them have the ability to view and respond to telephone calls and texts from your phone. So I mentioned that most of them connect to your watch. Your watch connects to the smartphone, but you don't have to take the smartphone out of your pocket or out of your purse to answer a telephone call or to send and receive text messages. So that can be a nice feature. Some of them, like I mentioned earlier, do have a cellular connection without using a smartphone. That could be LTE or 5G. It adds to the price of the watch. You also have a service fee of $5 to $10. And because it's a cell phone connection, it drains the battery quite fast there. Because these watches don't have a big battery like your cell phone has. To keep the watches small, they have small batteries. If you always carry your smartphone with you, whether it's in your purse, a pocket, or whatever, you don't need the cellular connection there. It can connect and use your smartphone. Most of them support a voice assistant. It could be Siri, Alexa, or Google Assistant. Most of them do blood oxygen saturation level, SpO2. And this is something that became popular with COVID. So if your blood oxygen saturation was below 98, that was one of the signs that you might have COVID. Heart rate monitors. And we'll get into a little more detail there, or I think in some of the stuff that goes into that. But it can go beyond just heart rate. Then you have things like electrocardiogram, ECG or EKG, tracking the heart rhythm or the electrical activity. The thing that I'll mention there is it's one thing to check a heart rate. Excuse me, I had to get a drink. My voice is getting a little dry. It's one thing to track a heart rate. It's another thing to do an EKG. Doing an EKG, ideally, you hook the sensors up to right near the heart. Well, a watch is not right near the heart. A watch is on an appendage of the person wearing it, and it's at one of the extremities there. So it's not real close to the heart. So the accuracy of some of these is they make them as accurate as they can get for tracking from the wrist, but they aren't as accurate as, let's say, a holster or that goes on your chest and is measuring from the chest. So that's something to be aware of there. And I believe even like in the Apple Watches, I've heard people say for the EKG feature, if one of the things in the setup, it'll ask you if you have AFib. And if you have AFib, it won't even let you turn on that feature because Apple doesn't want you to sue them if it doesn't accurately collect information or notify you. So it does as good a job as it can do measuring from your wrist. Let's just put it that way. Another feature that's very popular now is fall and crash detection and notification. It can do an emergency call to your contacts, or it can dial 911. This is especially nice for seniors. Although if you followed some of the news, you probably have seen people that were, let's say, out skiing and took a tumble and didn't look at their watch. Well, their watch noticed that they took a tumble, and then you have, I don't know if it's like a minute or that to cancel the call. Otherwise, it dials 911. So even just falling down, you could have your watch notifying 911 that this person is in bad shape there. So that's something to consider. Another feature is body temperature readings. What you're seeing in some of the newer watches is an always-on screen. Keeps the screen on even when the watch is idle. The older models and that you have to usually push a button or to wake it up to see the screen. Common features, timers, alarms, reminders, notifications, and it's right there on your wrist. So you don't have to dig for your phone in the pocket. You don't have to dig in the purse. You're seeing it right there without a lot of fumbling. A lot of these watches support apps. Now, they certainly don't support all the apps that you have like on your phone. They only support a handful of apps, which would be very beneficial to have on your wrist. And some of those things may be like a YouTube, a video chat app. So there's a variety of apps there. The other vendors are catching up with the number of apps that they support. But if there's a particular app that you're looking for, you really have to check out that version of the operating system that's on the watch. You have to check out all these things to see what's available. Some of the watches do support onboard storage of music if you're not connected to a phone. So if you're connected to a phone, you'd be going through your phone, whether the phone had the music stored locally on it or you were streaming from one of the streaming services. But if you're not using the phone, then having onboard storage of music may be an important feature for you. Another handy feature is contactless payments. This is for NFC, for near field communication, Apple Pay, or Samsung Pay. The advantage of this, again, is you don't have to fumble in your pocket or in your purse and put it in front of the cash register. So let's say you're in Lund's buying groceries and you don't have to fumble to get that out. You can just take your watch, swipe it in front of the device and pay your bill. A lot of them do have cameras. That camera can be used for photos or video calls. Because the screen is so small, it's limited quality. It's not as good usually as your smartphone. A lot of them have microphones and speakers. That's for making calls and doing voice commands. Then another nice feature is Find My Phone. So if you do have a tendency to forget where you misplaced your phone, you can use your watch to tell you where it is and what's going on there. Okay, now let's talk about the the top sellers in the mainstream category, that $300 to $400 category. Well, the number one selling watch in that category is the Apple Watch Series 8. Lists for $399. Some of its features, and it has a whole boatload of features. Always on OLED screen. That screen is 20% larger than the basic Apple SEs. So that's where you get the differences between the starting watches, the basic, the mainstream, and the premium. And it uses Apple's third generation heart sensor to report blood oxygen, ECG, and heart rate. New temperature sensor provides more fitness metrics and can even track ovulation. It has fall and crash detection and improved battery. Let's take a look at the ad here. And for those watching this in a video later on YouTube, I can't include this video in the YouTube, so you won't see it. I put the links in the YouTube where you can go to that manually, but we'll take a look at it here. Okay, so that's the Apple Series 8. They just came out with the Series 8 back in November. So they've been coming out with a new watch almost every year. Previous one was Series 7, Series 6, Series 5. Okay, another top seller in this mid-range mainstream, the Fitbit Sense 2. It's $299, slim, lightweight, comfortable design, improved touchscreen responsiveness, 5-day battery life, large bright screen, excellent stress management features, and accurate body temperature. The third is the Google Pixel Watch. It's best for Pixel phone users, attractive design with stainless steel case, bright responsive screen, good, app detection, secure band attachment, Fitbit tracking, and ECG app. And we have Garmin Forerunner 255, listed $349. Has more of a fitness focus, has built-in programs for triathlon and duathlon training. Okay, so that's the mainstream category. Let's talk about the basic category. The basic category starts at about $30 and goes up to $300. Basic watches include a few of the mainstream features, but not all. If you mostly want to see notifications on your wrist, make mobile payments, track workouts, these watches can be the right choice for you. Also, they're good for the first-time buyers, as well as older or younger users that really don't know exactly what they need. So you can start out with this basic watch and learn, maybe you want to upgrade your next watch in a year or two to the mainstream or a premium watch. The most popular in this category is the second generation Apple Watch SE. It sells for $249. It has the same software and apps, high and low heart rate notification, fall and car crash detection, and selection of exercise modes as the Series 8 model. It lacks an always on, and it has a smaller screen. It also doesn't have an ECG, doesn't have the blood alcohol measurements, and doesn't have the temperature sensor. So let's take a look at some of the features in this watch. That was from the Apple event back in September, so the watches are currently out and all the features are out there. Another watch that is popular in this category is the Fitbit Versa 4 for $229. It has many of the Fitbit's most notable fitness features: active zone, sleep tracking, built-in GPS, daily readiness score. You can also get phone notifications and access to Amazon's Alexa on your wrist. Soon support Google Maps and Google Wallet. But you may need the pricier $299 Fitbit Sense 2 to get Fitbit's more sophisticated health capabilities like sensors that scan for potential signs of stress, ECG, and skin sensor temperature. Another one is Samsung Galaxy Watch 5, $279. It's the best Android compatible smartwatch on the market. It has competitive price, sleek design, bright durable screen, good app selection, battery life over previous, and a bezel for quick scrolling. Garmin Venue 2 offers long battery life, an estimated 11 days, and many health and fitness features for the price: GPS, blood alcohol, or blood oxygen measurement, and sleep tracking. But it doesn't have a speaker or microphone for taking calls. Doesn't have onboard music storage unless you buy the higher end there. It's hard to find new smartwatches that cost less than $200, but there are a number of them with just a few features. Although there are some options out there, if you want to pay less and don't necessarily care about using apps, you might want to consider a fitness tracker instead. Fitbit also works with certain insurance companies to provide devices for members, so it's worth checking with your provider if they offer a low-cost option or free option. I mentioned this, and what I do if we were in person is I'd hold up my wrist. This is the watch I have on my wrist, the Wise watch. Currently sells for $33. I believe when I bought it, it was $19, cheaper than a Timex. It offers fitness, sleep, heart rate, oxygen level. You can control Wise devices in your house, a large screen, long battery life, limited apps that you can use. And this is what I currently have. It's not the smartest watch, but for me, the price was right. I'm not ready to pay hundreds of dollars for a device there. Let's take a quick look at this one. So that was the Wise watch there, and that's the watch that I currently have. The price was right, and The features, I wanted something for step tracking, sleep tracking, does heart rate. So it's got quite a few features, especially for the price, but it does not have a lot of the features that we talked about, especially from the mainstream and that. Okay, the last category is premium watches. They start at $400 and go up above $1,000. Premium watches are more rugged in design, and they have additional features that are aimed at sports enthusiasts. You have amongst there the Samsung Galaxy 5 Pro for $499, Garmin's Fenix the 7, $699, Garmin Epic Gen 2, $899 are good examples. These premium fitness watches have better durability, a longer battery life. And the reason they have a longer battery life is usually the watches are quite a bit bigger, thicker, and stuff like that. They're more accurate for location positioning. They usually have customizable buttons for extra features. And some of them target specific sports like running, scuba diving, mountain climbing, or golf. Apple's watch in this category is the Apple Watch Ultra. It sells for $799, has a 36-hour battery life compared to the Series 8 or the SE, which is about an 18-hour battery life. Water resistant to 100 meters compared to the Series 8, 50 meters. A depth gauge with a temperature sensor, dual frequency GPS, a titanium build, larger, brighter screen, and a programmable action button. It sets itself apart for outdoor adventure like diving, climbing, hiking, swimming, and more. When you're on foot, it uses L1 and L5 GPS for better accuracy and has a built-in 86 dB siren that is audible from up to 600 feet away. So when you're hiking and you fall into that ice crevice and you need somebody to save you, you can just even push the siren there. For underwater treks, the watch has a EN 13319 certification and a depth gauge with a water temperature sensor. It also works for recreational divers at depths up to 40 meters and can function as a dive computer with the Oceanic app. Cellular connectivity comes standard. So let's take a look at some of its features. So that's the Ultra there. I'm not sure if we have too many people that would need that type of watch, but it's out there. So some more tips on watches. Apple watches are the best choice if you are an iPhone user. Apple offers the 3 versions, the standard Series 8 and that mid-level, the entry-level SE, and the Ultra or the high-end Ultra. There are also older versions of Apple Watches that are also available that might offer everything you need at a discounted prices. So you can still find the Apple Series 7 and in some cases even the Series 6 out there discounted $100 to $200. So that's also an option if you're looking to buy a watch there. A smartwatch isn't useful if you don't enjoy wearing it. So comfort is important if you plan to wear it all day long and then when you're sleeping. So make sure you try it or see what it feels like there. Screen size. If the screen is too small, it can be hard to see or to touch things on it. If it's too big, it can be clunky and drains your battery. So that's the eternal dilemma there with the screen size there. A lot of them do come with optional accessories that can be bought at additional prices, from simple to elegant, mainly in the choice of bands. They're interchangeable and you can get them to look all different ways. I mentioned this, do not buy one of these watches as a status symbol. Just because you like new and shiny things doesn't mean that you should buy a watch. You really should have a feature or a function that you really want. And so I've known people, friends of mine, that money's no object, so they went out and bought the Ultra. Well, the Ultra, for what they're doing, is just ridiculous. It really is flaunting that you really don't know what you're doing unless you're a professional rock climber or climbing Mount Everest or surfing. It most people, 99% of the people do not need that watch. Many watches come with accessories and other watch bands. So that concludes our report. Well, I'm going to stop sharing now, and if you want, you can unmute yourself and show your video, and we can interact. Let me get back here. Where are my meetings? We'll take a look at the chat and see if there's anything in the chat. Okay, Paula asked, does the Wise really read blood alcohol? Why do I say alcohol? Blood oxygen levels. Yes, it does. And the accuracy of any of these things is what's up for question there. But it does do the blood oxygen. And as far as I know, it's readings that I get seem to be accurate there. Again, people can unmute themselves and show if you want to show. Oh, I'll turn back on my video.
Well,
here.
Number one, I want it to be known that I wrote blood oxygen. Tom is the one that said blood alcohol, not Paula.
Yeah, it's blood alcohol might be more useful to people than blood oxygen, but
yeah, that might be another liability one.
That's interesting to me that for only $33, a $33 watch, and you don't have to do the $400 one. Yeah, that's amazing. And you know what? People probably don't know that that's a $33 watch as opposed to a $300 watch.
Most of them don't. Most people assume it's an Apple Watch because certainly most people are familiar with friends or family that have an Apple Watch. And so when they see something with a display, and this, I do have to press a button to bring up the display, but I can load apps on here and I can do, and also it's a case like I like to do my steps, get my 10,000 steps in, and it'll tell me exactly when I got them, how fast I was going, things like that. Some of it I look up, there's an app that I use on the phone to get more detail because the screen on here is certainly relatively limited. I don't look at my statistics for sleep or for walking or running on here too much. I look more on the app for that. But I've had this for 2 years, and like I say, cheaper than a Timex.
Yeah, it was interesting to me because I do have a family member that's on oxygen, and at $33, almost anybody could afford that.
Right. I bought this right at the beginning of COVID there, and Wise, for those that aren't familiar with it, it's a company that started as a Kickstarter to make cameras, the indoor cameras, outdoor cameras, and that. And they came out on the market 3 or 4 years ago with a 1995 camera that blew out of the water. Ring and some of the other ones that were more expensive. And so their theory in life is to create these products, mainstream products, at the lowest price possible there. And they do a high quality product. Now I see Bonnie asked a question here. Does the Wise Watch call emergency services? No, it does not call emergency services. So if you want crash detection or that you have to use a watch like the Apple. Again, all of this watch has limited capability there.
Hey, Tom, this is John Stofko. Do these watches have extra charges if you're just using them in connection with your phone?
No, that's the reason that most people just connect to their phone. So when you're making a telephone call, it's using a connection between your watch to your phone, whether it's in your pocket or your purse, but it has to be close by. to receive your text messages, to receive a number of notifications, and the connection to the internet. It's using your phone to connect to the internet. So the watch itself is reliant on the phone, and it's using the services from the phone. No extra cost to connect your watch up to your phone. Now, some people, I've had senior citizens, well, I guess I'm a senior citizen now, but I've had, my dad's turning 96 next week, so I call him the senior citizen. But he, and Crondelot, where he stays there, I have people there, they don't have a smartphone or they don't have a phone there. And if they want crash detection and stuff like that, without the phone, that's where having that cellular connection is necessary to provide the GPS and to provide the cell connection. And there you pay the monthly fee for the cell connection and the services there.
This is John again. I have a Samsung phone, and on the previous iterations of the Samsung phone, there was a little sensor on the back you could put your finger on. It gave you readings like your pulse rate and your blood oxygen saturation. But they've recently taken that away, and I think it was just a ploy to sell watches.
That's probably true. It's also a case of I mentioned the accuracy of some of these is not as good as a professional. If you want a professional EKG, no doctor in their right mind is going to say, we want a device on the wrist. They want a device attached right over the heart, getting the electrical from that particular area. These sensors that they've built to run on the wrist have gotten better and better. So they are good. I just wouldn't call them great. And that goes for everyone, Apple to Wise. Does it measure heart rate? You bet it measures heart rate and that. But if you want the best heart rate, you want something attached to right where the heart is. And that's where a halter or a device that gets the contact right there is what's more important there.
And that's kind of behind the question that I put in the chat too, is that, I was wondering if when you do scuba diving, you got the, whatever your readout is, I kind of like that direct connection to the tank that tells me how much air I've got left rather than counting on whatever the connection is between that and something on my wrist.
Just reboot your watch. Hold your breath and reboot.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not real familiar with how accurate on the scuba, but I guess I'd be like you. I might not give it 100% of my attention there. I might scale it back a little bit and make sure that things are right there.
Yeah, it would still do, though. I mean, you also do need to track time at depth, and that's what they have dive computers, wrist-mounted dive computers. So
and
I guess you're not making a phone call underneath. Yeah, you're not making a call from under the water probably, unless you got really fancy equipment. But yeah, I don't know how you'd manage that. So not.
And like I say, I'm not. It may sound like I'm putting down the features and functions in the watches. I think they're great for what they can do in that. But even the fall detection capability is, okay, if I have an Apple Watch and I hit it like that, that can trigger an event there. And when that event occurs, you have, I believe it's a minute there to respond. Otherwise, it's going to dial 911 or dial your emergency contacts. And a number of people have been doing activities, and you either hit your hand or somebody gives you a high five real hard, and that triggers it. They aren't you're going to have false positives with any of this stuff. And the EKG and the heart rate stuff, that's why I mentioned that fact that even Apple will not let you turn on that feature unless you say that you don't have AFib, because they do not want to be sued. And if you're relying on these devices to give you medical alerts and things like that, they can help. They're very, very helpful, but they aren't the most accurate, and you shouldn't just be relying on that. Steve Thielen, do they use Bluetooth to communicate with the phone, and are there any connectivity? They use a variety of, for those that aren't aware, in your phone, and this is a cheap Android phone, but let's say this was an iPhone. The iPhone has about 8 different ways to communicate with things. So when we were talking about contactless payments, that uses its own frequency, its own bandwidth, its own area. These devices have all these different ways to communicate. Some of it is cellular. You have 3G, 4G, 5G. Even within the 5G, all 5G is not the same. A true 5G, you have to be within 2 blocks of the cell tower, and that's a particular frequency. Most people today that think that they're getting 5G connectivity are getting really 4G. It's simulated 5G, but they pop it up on the screen that says 5G, but it's really 4G. Same is true of Bluetooth and some of these other ways to communicate. They use different frequencies. And depending on the app that you're using and that, some of them will use Bluetooth where there's a common interface. So as an example, text messages, telephone calls, that's a well-defined interface, works great for Bluetooth. When you're talking about some of these other features, whether it's passing GPS information, that's usually done with a proprietary connectivity between the watch and the phone, the way that it's doing it, because Bluetooth wasn't designed for that, doesn't have a common interface. So all of these devices are using multiple ways to connect and to pass information back and forth so that they can utilize it. Even when you get to making your video calls using your watch. Well, again, Bluetooth wasn't really designed for that amount of data being passed on it. So that's not a good way to pass data from the watch to the phone. Other means are used. And I right offhand, I don't know exactly what it's using there, but if you ever go into the specs on any of these phones, they'll start listing all the ways, all the capabilities of the phone, what frequencies they use, what capabilities they use, and that's part of the reason that the batteries don't last as long as we'd all like them to on these devices. Is they're constantly checking for other devices to connect to, and they're using all these different ways to communicate. So I'm a little wishy-washy there, but it uses Bluetooth and others to communicate there, and that's why you do get some proprietary things. The Google Pixel watch works especially well with the Google Pixel smartphone. It doesn't work well with other phones. Some of the features work and some of the features don't work because guess what? That connectivity is not built into these other phones. Okay.
Hey, Tom?
Yeah.
How long does the battery last on your Wise watch?
There's different options that you can turn on and off. Some of them have to do with notifications. Some of them have to do with how, when it goes to sleep, some things like that. So it's like a phone or anything there. Depends on how much you use it. If you get a lot of notifications, it's not going to last as long. If you don't get a whole lot of notifications, it'll obviously last longer there. You can at any time, certainly I can pull up and I can see how much, what percent or things like that I have left. But in general, I get a week on mine there, and I wear it 7x24. I wear it to sleep. I wear it everywhere there. It's like I mentioned, it's not the smartest of watches, but it does have some of the features that we talked about. So if you just want to dabble with it a little bit, the watch band isn't the most comfortable watch band. It doesn't look as nice. They don't have as many options for the size. So you can get two different sizes of screen and that. So they do have a couple of things, but again, if I'm comparing feature for feature with an Apple Watch, the Apple SE for $249, it's no comparison. I'd rather have the Apple at $249 than a $33 watch. But for a $33 watch, it's a heck of a deal. I should have invested in the company, but they don't. They're not a public company, so I don't get anything for recommending them there. Any other questions or comments? And like I started out with, if you do have an iPhone and can afford it, I'd recommend starting out with the SE, the basic watch there. And the basic watch has many features. The Series 8 has additional features, and most people don't need the Ultra. So 99.9% of the people are going to fall into the SE category or the Series 8 there for the type of watch that they have. Watches, I guess one other thing I'll maybe mention, have a shorter lifespan than your cell phone. So cell phones, I think, I usually tell people you may get as short as 2 to 3 years, or you may get up to 4 to 5 years out of it. Watches, typically, they're making such advances now with them with the battery technology that you may be looking at replacing every 2 years or so. So just be prepared that the new features and functions and the accuracy and everything do get better and better. And these things have only been around really mainstream for the last 5 years. So think how far the iPhones have come in the last 10 years since they started, and that's how far the watches are going to come. Okay, I don't see any other comments there. Any other questions or anything by anybody? Otherwise, I'll say thanks for joining us today, and hopefully our snow tomorrow won't be as bad as the last one, and it'll just be a little bit of the white stuff there. So take care, and we'll see you next month then. Thanks.
Thanks, Tom.
Thank you.
Yep. Thank you for attending.